And I'm here to refute Trevor's claim that the death penalty is an ineffective punishment and does not deter crime. He first supported his claim by saying that innocent people can be sentenced to death, and all the appeals clog our courts, and also taxpayers pay more for the death penalty. Alright, I'll start by explaining why innocent people are usually not wrongfully sentenced to death, and then I'll talk about why the appeals contradict his first statement and how taxpayers end up paying the same amount for the death penalty. Alright, first of all, innocent people are usually not wrongfully sentenced to death because people have the right to appeal to the court case's decision. And Trevor brought up a court case where a man was sentenced to death. But since then, in 1967, the Supreme Court placed a moratorium on executions while it decided on its ruling, and it ruled that it added a new layer for lawyers, where lawyers can review and appeal executions. Also, in 1992, there was a new layer of protection, which included DNA testing. And due to these new layers of protection, 15 convicted men facing the death penalty have since been exonerated with DNA evidence. Also, between 1973 to 2010, there has been a total of 139 exonerations, and 3 of which are from California. And breaking that down, there has been an average of 3.1 exonerations per year from 1973 to 1999. Also, between 2000 to 2007, there has been an increase, and the new average is around 5 exonerations per year. And then appeals clog our courts. This isn't entirely true because the appeals are meant to ensure that innocent people are not wrongfully convicted. Taxpayers, that was to contradict the first claim. And last of all, taxpayers pay more for the death penalty. This isn't entirely true because California inadequately does not keep track of expenses and how much it costs. And the Department of Corrections is overpaying employees to take care of aging inmates by a total of $600,000. And this is quoted by Wendy Fry. And life in prison is more expensive than the death penalty, because if a person is dead, then there's no charge to feed them, or to house them, or to deal with their medical problems as they age. And once they're dead, their account is closed and they're no longer a burden on the justice system. And the cost of the death penalty varies between cases, and shorter or faster cases usually cost less because there's less expenses with appeals and lawyers and whatnot. And usually court cases that last longer usually cost more money. And usually the cost varies between $1 million to $3 million. And capital punishment cases seem more expensive because the cost is upfront, whereas life in prison, the cost is more gradual between the centuries. And also, life in prison is more expensive because it causes overcrowding, and states lack room to house future inmates. In conclusion, the death penalty is an effective punishment, but it does not deter crime because innocent people are usually not sentenced to death, and appeals help them to ensure that they aren't wrongfully convicted, and taxpayers end up paying the same amount of money.
All right, well, you labeled the main and secondary claims pretty clearly. There's not really much analysis of what the advocate's arguments are on either of those points. You just have counterclaims. Your counterclaim on the first part has to do with the exoneration process and how DNA works on this. I think you've got an interesting argument here, but I don't think it's very clearly explained. It seems to me that the inference that you're making is that if we didn't have the death penalty, these exonerations would not occur, and innocent people were more likely to suffer as a consequence because they wouldn't have the automatic appeals. And I think that that's an interesting way to suggest that this is going on. But it wasn't clear that that's what you were saying. I'm kind of inferring that that's the argument that you're making, because otherwise, if all of your data about the exoneration seems to suggest we've got a lot of innocent people who are being convicted, and that seems to be a problem with the system, just the way the advocate talked about it. On the cost issue, the first part of your argument was not clear when you were talking about what California statistics are. There's a little bit of analysis about what the costs are after long-term and short-term costs are discussed, but I'm not really sure that you give us any statistical comparison that allows us to make a judgment. Your summary, I think, is a little bit confusing because it starts off by, in essence, saying, well, the death penalty doesn't work, but it doesn't work for reasons other than the two things that the advocate said, which seems, like I said, off the point. The summary of the arguments that you made on those points were okay. Like I said, I think you need a clear declarative sentence on some of these points, and you don't really talk about the advocate's evidence at all, or their reasoning. You're just presenting counterclaims on these points. All right, thank you.